So we have tried to do this podcast many times. And we faced lots of trials and tribulations, including Los Angeles wildfires.
Yeah.
And then yesterday we had a huge technical difficulty situation, which was my fault.
It was a learning lesson. She's an IT genius.
Yes.
She's got it figured out now.
I have a new set of skills on my resume.
Yeah.
But we are here, and I'm so happy to have you here. You were honestly one of the first people I thought of for this podcast when I started it.
I'm so
because
excited.
Your energy is just infectious. And we met on set for Show Me Your Moo and literally hit it off immediately.
We really did. I actually just ran across like some videos from that day, and I was like, yep. That was my girl.
We were like the comedic duo. Actually, I think that was one of the first times where they had to be like, hey guys, like we're actually working. Like you need to like get it together.
Let's bring it down.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, okay, I forgot that we're actually at work and we're not just getting paid to hang out and make friends. But you know.
This ended up actually kind of being perfect timing because we have an amazing topic to go over today, which we will get to.
Yes.
But I want to just start out by you giving a little like gist of your background and how you got into modeling, as I always do.
Okay. I mean, first of all, I'm Sophia Baltz.
This is Sophia Baltz, by the way.
Sophia Baltz.
I'm like, everybody already knows who you are. I don't even have to. No, she needs no introduction.
You know, listen, I'll take it. God. I mean, modeling, I feel like, has been my identity, which has also been a journey of its own, kind of reminding myself that I am more than just that. But I mean, it's been in my life. I got interested at the age of 12.
Oh, wow. Okay.
After I went to a Jonas Brothers music video. A Jonas Brothers concert.
I was like, damn, you were in the Jonas Brothers music video?
I was starting out strong. My career started very strong.
I'm like, how did we get there?
Yeah, let's rewind. Still haven't done that yet. That was the...
Manifesting.
That was it right there. It came straight from
100%.
The heart. I went to my first concert. I was obsessed with Nick Jonas. Literally.
Girl.
Yeah, okay.
Same.
So,
Same. We're on the same wavelength.
We really are the same people.
We really are.
I went home after that concert, Googled how to be in a Jonas Brothers music video.
Oh, okay.
And modeling agencies popped up in St. Louis, which was like the closest big city to me. I'm from small town Midwest. Okay. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, that's what I have to do now.
You're like, the math is math.
That's it. That's my career path right here.
Yeah.
And my parents took me seriously.
I love that.
And I feel like my mom, she modeled a little bit when she was younger.
That makes sense. She's stunning.
I was in like little pageants and things. So it was kind of like, it wasn't something that was like, absolutely not. Yeah. It was like, oh yeah, let's do it. Yeah. But my dad was the one who like took the reins on it.
Oh, that's so cute.
And I remember specifically taking those photos in my backyard and my dad printing them out and sending them. And it wasn't something where it was like, okay, this is, I was on him about it because I'm 12.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on. I was just like, yeah, this is something that I want to do. And these are the websites that popped up.
Yeah.
And there was this one in St. Louis that was like, big one. Anyways, he sends them out. It wasn't like a big deal where I was like, oh my God, I hope this all works.
Like waiting by the door.
He got a phone call and they were like, hey, we'd love to meet with Sophia. And I was like, wow. And I grew up on Tyra Banks'
We were talking about this
Size.
yesterday.
Yes, we did. But that movie was like,
I love Life Size.
Everything to me.
Same.
And I'll never forget, we walked into the agency and it looked like...
Oh, cute.
It looked like
The
Life
Office.
Size. Yes. Yeah. It looked like Sunnyvale, wherever it was called.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. Like the colors and it just felt so cool and modelly.
Yeah.
And I remember, they did my height and did all the little things. And they were like, okay, you have a great look, but you look too old to be modeling girls. Oh. Because I was like a very mature 12.
Okay.
I had boobs.
Oh.
I was grown.
They're like, girl, we're putting you in the big girl magazine.
Listen, come back when you turn 13 and we'll put you with the women.
Oh, okay. Wow. Damn.
And I was like, I don't want to wait.
Oh.
I just, you're 12.
Yeah, you're like, I want it today.
I want it now. And I didn't even know what I wanted.
You're like, where's Nick Jonas? Bring him out.
Jonas? Where's the music video set? Like,
Yeah, I get that.
Call me when we could do that.
Yeah.
Then I got into sports.
Okay.
And I was just like, that was my thing. And then around 16, 17, it just like hit me again where I was like, oh, yeah.
I want to do that.
Modeling.
Yeah.
That's like what I'm going to do. And I think it was probably America's Next Top Model, all of those.
Yep.
And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that's like what I wanted to do. And that started everything.
I feel like, honestly, do you feel like waiting was better for you? Because I feel like starting at 12 would have been, even 13 would have been difficult.
Yeah, like what are you even doing at that age?
Yeah.
That gave me enough time to actually have other reasons other than Nick Jonas to be interested in the fashion industry.
I mean, that was great.
It was a great starter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that was then when I was like, ooh, I love fashion and I love photography and really working in front of the camera.
Yeah.
But that was a journey of its own. From 16 to 20 was when I finally got signed with Wilhelmina.
Okay.
In Chicago.
In Chicago, okay.
But I had been signed to an agency that I worked my ass off just to get signed to in St. Louis.
Okay.
Because already I was athletically built. I was not a straight size model.
And this was also back, like, now obviously things have changed a lot, but like at that time, what year was this? Like probably
like 2013-ish was when I started.
Okay, yeah, so this was like...
So this was... I'll never forget going in when I was actually like I went back to that same agency that was like interested me when I was 12. And they were like, yeah, you still have a great look, you know, like we're interested, but you're either going to need to lose weight and become a model, or you can gain weight and become a plus size model. And it was that exact delivery where, of course, in my brain, I'm like, I don't want to do that.
You're like, I just want to be myself. Like, why is that not an option?
Yeah, like, okay. And I'll never forget, this agent at the time was like maybe 5'4" and like a little toothpick. And she stood me in front of a mirror and she's standing next to me and she goes, I want your legs to look like mine.
Oh my God. That literally just gave me the chills.
Like, I'll never forget that. And at that age, 16, 17.
Oh my God, you're so impressionable.
So impressionable.
Even if someone told me that right now, I'm 30, I would be like, I mean, it wouldn't do the same thing to my self-confidence, but that's
mess
crazy.
With you a little bit.
Of
but
course.
I remember, I'm like, girl, they wanted my legs to not touch when my feet touched.
The infamous thigh gap.
That was where it started. That was kind of my introduction to the world.
Yeah.
Where I was like, ooh, okay, this could be bad.
Yeah.
And
was your mom there with you?
You know, I think it was my dad.
Okay.
My mom usually does like everything with me, but my dad was very present in this like beginning modeling stages. It might have been my mom.
Someone was with you.
Someone was there. Okay. Absolutely.
And
my parents are absolute helicopter parents.
Okay.
So that was like not an object.
Were they experiencing this situation?
I don't think that they were with me during that conversation.
Okay.
I think it was one of those where like, hey, we're going to take her back here, do her measurements.
Yeah.
And they were like sitting in the waiting room.
Yeah.
And that was my first like, oh shit. And my dad was a personal trainer at the time.
Oh, okay.
So I've always grown up with, you know, that present.
Yeah.
But with that being said, when I relayed that message, like, oh, I need my like thighs to get smaller, he was upset.
Yeah.
Because he knows the science and just the logistics of human bodies and genetics. And he's like, how can a woman stand in front of a mirror and tell you she wants you to look like her? Also,
like you said, you were athletic. I'm sure you were in amazing shape.
Oh, yeah.
And like, that's such a negative message to put in someone's head. Like, your body is not right the way it is, and it needs to look, I mean, which is like the whole essence of the modeling industry. But like, I think I had a similar experience actually when I first came out here, and my mom was with me though, and I was at Next. And they straight up like told me and my mom like, oh, she's amazing, but like she needs to lose weight. Like she needs to lose weight in her face, I think they said. And they were like, oh, you can just do that by like running, like doing sprints on the treadmill or something. And mind you,
specifics.
I was tiny. I've been a string bean since I was in middle school, whatever. And so my mom was like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys?
Right.
Like, how are you going to tell a 16-year-old that she needs to lose weight in her face?
Like, are you kidding me? That's the thing I think that is really, especially in that time period, how they would tell you where you need to lose it. Like you can tell your body like, hey, size, you're going to need to like not.
They're like upper body, great. Lower body, maybe 2 inches, thigh 1 inch. You're like
you can just pick and pull. And I'll never forget exactly what you said. Like, oh, by doing this. You can do it. They were like, yeah, you know, we can really elongate your legs and get rid of all the muscle by doing yoga, Pilates. And
They're like
running.
less emphasis on strength and more emphasis on
Well, no,
length.
they were like, we're gonna need you to stop playing sports.
That's so
and
crazy.
I did. I played soccer. That was kind of like one of my main things, and I was like, gotta cut that. I played volleyball. They were like, volleyball's good. Volleyball's okay. I'm like, okay.
They're like, that's a sexy tall girl sport.
That's like a lengthy sport. So that's not very muscular.
Christ.
It was certain things like that.
Yeah.
And long story short, I really had to come to the decision of like, am I going to do this or not? And I remember I was starting to get to a point where, you know, like my dad was packing my lunches for me, and it was salads and Triscuits and, you know, those things. The Triscuits.
Not the Triscuits.
Okay, no chips, Triscuits.
Triggered.
And, you know, this like running and trying to do these little YouTube Pilates videos that they're sending me and measuring myself and going in for checkups. And they're like, you're almost there. And I'll never forget, I got to a point where I was like, I'm not skinny. I've always been, you know, an athletic woman, but at that time I was very skinny. And my chest, you could see all of the bones in my chest. And again, that's not natural for me.
Yeah.
And I remember like starting to see my hip bones, and I was like, yes. And I was like, I definitely have to be there now.
Yeah.
And they were like, you're almost there. And I was like, okay, no, I can't.
Like, what is it going to I'm going to have to like kill myself?
Exactly. And I thankfully was able to feel when things could go bad. And I was like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And my dad growing up actually had dealt with eating disorders. So he was also very aware of that. He was a bodybuilder.
Okay.
So, similar-ish
Yeah.
to modeling,
Yeah.
you know. He was very aware to make sure that I wasn't
Getting into
going
that,
too
like the
far.
disordered behavior. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that was kind of when I was like, you know what? No, I think I'm going to have to step back because this isn't healthy for me, and I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And so I took a break, and I was like, I guess this just isn't going to happen. And I can't remember I still would think about it all the time. And I remember going to an open call, another one in St. Louis, and somebody pulled me, and they were like, you're the perfect size to be a curve model. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And why has nobody told me about that before?
Yeah.
Because what do you mean I've been like running and doing Pilates and eating Triscuits?
Trying to make myself a version of myself that's not me.
You're telling me I'm perfect to model the way I am?
Yeah.
Like, never heard those words
Yeah.
together. And so that was my first like, wow, maybe I could do this.
Yeah.
And they ended up, you know, sending my images to an agency in New York. They didn't end up signing me, but that was my window where I was like, wait a minute, we can actually do this the way that we are. And that kind of rejuvenated me. Went back to the same agency in St. Louis. This is all over the span of like 2-3-ish years.
Okay.
Because St. Louis was it for me. That was as close as I could get while still being in school.
Yeah.
My parents wanted me to get my generals in college.
Is that like a just general
like your first 2 years?
Okay.
I don't even know if I'm saying it right.
I think they call it like an associate's too.
The associate's degree, that's what it was. Once I finished those 2 years in college, I'm bartending at the time. I'm signed to this agency in St. Louis as a curve model. I'm still like barely curvy. Okay. I'm working, I think I worked like a scrubs job and like a Christmas elf train ride that wasn't even modeling. It was like an acting thing.
Yeah.
That was the extent of like the St. Louis market. But I was just on a high to like be signed and represented because that was like a journey of its own. But from that moment, I really started where I was like, okay, if I'm going to be a model, I want to do it my way.
Yeah.
Exactly how I am. And even in St. Louis, girl, when the jobs that I was getting put up for were scrubs and random things, one of the agents there was like, the reason that you're not going to move forward in your modeling career is your teeth. And I was like, excuse me?
Oh my God.
Because that was never even something that I even like thought about. I was like, okay, not my thighs anymore. What's wrong with my teeth?
Jesus Christ.
And I actually, like last year, was cleaning out my email somehow.
And you saw it?
I had the emails from 2000 and I don't know,
15 or something? Yeah.
That was, oh my God. Like reading them took me right back to
Yeah.
that place of like, I didn't think I could feel that way. But it made me so sad because I was just like, oh my God, first of all, you were so wrong.
Yeah.
And you were really telling me that this was like getting in the way of my career. It wasn't. You just couldn't do anything for me.
Exactly.
And that became such an insecurity for a little bit of time because I was like, oh, something's wrong with my teeth.
Yeah.
And I'd never thought of it before. By saying no to that as well, I was just like, you know what? I really want to do this by just being 100% myself.
Yeah.
And if you don't want me the way that I am, I don't want you. And that has really been my motto since those early years. And I feel like I'm so lucky to have had a healthy and successful journey where I didn't go into that, but it's so easy to go there.
Yeah. You have to be a really strong, I feel like just your personality made you this way. Maybe also like having your parents support.
My parents lifted me up.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like coming from two parents that have told me nothing but like, you're perfect the way that you are. And it's made me realize like when I have kids one day, I'm like, you have got to pour so much into them to lift them up because maybe they don't go into the modeling industry, but the world and industries in general will try to break you down and it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
But if you have that inner strength where you're like, my parents told me I'm perfect, you know, like you kind of grow up with a bit more confidence.
Yeah.
And I definitely like owe them that because if I didn't have that, I don't think I would have been able to make it.
And you would have like also what ends up happening when you just are 100% yourself and you don't take any other like any other option, then you ended up attracting the people that should be, because I'm sure you have like an amazing team now and you have had an amazing career and you've done all the things that are for you.
Yes, 1000%. I feel like that was kind of when I got that message that was like, you're not going any further because of your teeth. I was like, you know what? Crazy. I think it's time for me to make a decision. And I remember it was like the hardest decision I'd ever made at that time of like 18, 19. I'd finished college and I was like, all I could think about when I was sitting in class was modeling. And I was like, I have to do this now. Like, this is my time.
This is the time, yeah.
And I said, hey, I either leave this agency in St. Louis that is absolutely doing nothing for me, but like...
Besides giving you complexes.
Okay, but it took me so long to get someone to say yes that I was afraid to leave them.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if nobody else wants me? And that decision was like eating me up inside. But I was like, actually, you guys are sending me messages like this. I don't need this. I need to see what else is out there. Mm-hmm. The next week I got signed to Wilhelmina.
Oh my gosh. And the one in Chicago.
Mm-hmm,
okay.
It was like the biggest win for me because that debate inside was like, do I just stay with this because I'm scared or do I take the leap? And that was another one of those big moments where I was like, you got to take the leap. Yep. You got to believe in yourself. Somebody else is going to want you. Yep. And that was kind of my beginning of like, oh, I'm a real model now. And I feel like that was such a big part of my journey, finding a team that appreciated me, was going to represent me, teeth, thighs, you know,
exactly
everything,
how you are.
Exactly how I was, and love me for that. So that, the start was rough.
Yeah.
The start was, but I feel like so many people are. I dreamed of being scouted. I was not scouted. I was like knocking on doors and fucking, I'm like, I'll do what you want me to do.
Even for me, like getting scouted and like not really having a hard time signing into agencies in the beginning, like still once you get in, it's like they still do the same shit where it's like, we love you, we signed you, but like we want you to be like this. Or we love you, we signed you, but like, you know, it's always like there's always a but. Yeah. And it's like, why can't you just, if you love me and you signed me, like then just let me be me.
And I feel like that would be more confusing where it's like, you scouted me.
Yeah.
I thought I was like,
I didn't even bring myself here.
Right. I didn't ask for this.
Well, we were talking about this too before we started recording, but like then there's also like the personality aspect of it. I never felt like I was the typical like, you know, I didn't actually really care about fashion that much. Yeah. And I was just always really personable and like goofy and silly and nerdy and like all these things that weren't like typical model characteristics. Right. And so I felt like I always had a hard time meshing with agents or like having agents like me because I just wasn't like, I don't know what they wanted me to be or something. Yeah.
Like what a model should be like.
Yeah. But it's such a journey. And like, I feel like that is such a thing that resonates through your content, like who you are as a person. It's just like being authentically you, but it really takes a long time to get to that point.
Oh, yeah.
And it's such a weird thing. I don't think we've talked about this a lot on this podcast yet, but like the concept of like curve or like straight size, because traditionally it's only been like sample size and plus size.
Yeah.
And it's just so insane to me because women are an entire spectrum of bodies. So
1000%.
to make models feel like they need to fit into these two categories, which then promotes the message to the greater society that like either you have to be this or you have to be that, when it's like most people are not this or that.
Exactly.
It's insane.
That honestly is an episode on its own.
It really is. We'll come back for episode 2.
Round 2, part 2, because that's a whole, and it still continues to be that.
Yeah.
Where people will ask me too, they're like, what is a curve? I'm like, honestly, girl,
I don't fucking know.
I have no idea what it means. And, everybody, there's like this discourse of like, you're not curved, you're not this. And it's like, this is what the industry's calling it. I understand that I'm like, some of us aren't the best representation, but this is the way that it is. And it's some representation.
It's something,
that people have been fighting tooth and nail to just get something.
Yeah.
So we definitely need to circle back on that.
We will literally come back for episode 2. But there is something that we have to talk about today. Basically, H&M has decided they're not the only brand, but they came out recently and said that they were going to start using AI twin models, which is really terrifying.
Very scary.
And I'm not surprised because obviously we've seen AI infiltrate pretty much every industry at this point.
Totally.
And other brands have talked about using it before. I think Levi's was talking about doing just using AI models,
right?
Maybe like Fashion Nova. I can't remember.
I definitely remember Levi's for sure, kind of, and a few other brands that have maybe tested it out or put some feelers out to see how people react. And it hasn't been something that has been implemented just yet, but I feel like H&M is the one that they're doing something different, where they feel that this is something that would be better than using AI because they're using the likeness of real models. But I think that this is even scarier.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're moving forward with it, it's feeling very real.
100%. Well, yeah, they've come out and said that they're doing this. It's already in the works, it seems like.
They've already got 30 models selected.
Oh, it's 30.
They said that they wanted to use 30 models.
Wow, okay.
And essentially, they're going to have a digital twin of themselves so that when they're unavailable for work, they can use the digital twin of them. But that the models have the final say of whether they can use it or not.
Right, sure.
But with the options of other brands, even competitor brands, being able to use the same digital twin, which there's so much going on with that. A lot of people, even models that I've talked to, they haven't quite heard about it yet.
Yeah.
Which, maybe means that it's in the very beginning stages. But I think with a brand as big as H&M right now, and using models that are working models.
Yeah, and big models.
Big models that are signing on and agreeing to something like this is a next step.
It feels like it's setting a precedent for sure. And for those of you who are like wondering about like the process, I don't know exactly, but in the other podcast I listened to that referenced this, they basically said that they would bring you in, take like full body scans of you and upload it into, there's like a new program that they're using to do this that OpenAI came out with. I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, so they'll take like a full scan of you and then create like an AI avatar of you, but it looks insanely photorealistic, obviously. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people have seen like the photorealistic AI. Like some of it you can tell, but like it's getting harder and harder.
It's starting to get harder and harder.
And I'm guessing with this technology, if they're implementing it into a brand as big as H&M and going to be using it on e-com, and I don't think they said campaigns. I think they said social media and e-com. But obviously it has to be really fucking realistic.
It's gotta be good. And I actually think they did say they were going to use in campaigns, which to me is like, because I've actually worked for a brand that did replace us models with avatars. Now, this was a brand that we were already shooting nose down e-com.
Okay, yeah.
We were basically mannequins.
Exactly.
There was not much life being brought into these clothes.
Yeah.
But even then, that was a consistent client for me that I, was paying rent with. And seeing how many people, just to create those simple nose down images of these clothes, how many people were a part of those teams and how many people lost jobs when they decided to shift over to using avatars it was jarring.
Yeah. It's not just about us.
No.
Like there are so many people that go into, and even an e-com shoot, especially a campaign shoot, but an e-com shoot, like they mentioned things in this podcast I hadn't even thought of, because obviously we think of us, we think of photographers, we think of hair and makeup, we think of lighting, we think of grips, we think of assistants.
Styling.
Then there's styling. There's also catering. There's also like the people who are just keeping the building running where you're shooting. Like it is such a vast and wide scope of people that would be affected by things like this. That's like, it's so terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that was one of the moments that when I first read the article from The Business of Fashion, I was just hit, where I'm like, oh, okay, this needs to be something that we advocate for, because we're not just advocating for ourselves as models, but all of the amazing people. One of the best parts about working
100%.
on set is working with all of the incredibly talented and creative people. And I think that even every time I'm on set, I'm in awe of watching how everyone has to work together just to create one
photo.
image.
Yep.
And to think that, and I can't even quite wrap my head around, I told you, I'm a grandma when it comes to technology, so I don't want to sound like AI is horrible, because I really don't quite know exactly how it works.
Yeah.
And, I definitely think that there are avenues where maybe AI can benefit in certain markets.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say that technology is horrible.
Yeah.
But in an industry that is so important creatively and visually, where our jobs as models are to bring clothes to life, to show consumers how the clothes fit, how the clothes move, how the clothes breathe.
And like create a story and give you that story. Yeah.
Exactly. When I was 16 and moved on past Nick Jonas, what got me interested in modeling was flipping through pages of magazines and anything that just felt
made you feel something.
Made me feel something.
Yeah.
I was just in awe. And I was like, I want that. And that's what we are supposed to do. That's what the fashion industry is supposed to sell, a lifestyle, and to show you what these clothes feel like, how you can feel when you wear them.
Well, and on top of that, there's so many parts to this that terrify me. The job losses, the just like the infiltration of AI and, just taking over everything. But also like you just mentioned, we already alter the clothes a lot
1,000%
in a shoot before
1,000%.
it's shot and before
1,000%.
people get it. Like if you ever wonder why you get your clothes in person and it looks nothing like it looks on the model, it's because I have 16 clips down my back.
Or a water bottle.
Yeah.
Pulling the clothes tight to make it really fit perfectly.
But then if you're using AI, how you're just going to be able to completely alter a product and it's going to be nothing like what the actual product is. So I don't understand how that's going to work for consumers.
Exactly.
And also like you could just make any person that you want, and it's like not even, it's already hard to find representation in modeling, but I just don't feel like creating a fake version of a person equals representation, because I think maybe that's kind of like the argument as well. It's like, oh, well, we're not showcasing every type of body, so now we'll be able to show you any type of person, and it's like
you could literally do that if you chose to do that.
That's true.
Beforehand.
But it's not even a person.
Exactly. This isn't even a real body, and how are the clothes? The clothes aren't even real. Like none of it
is real.
Makes sense. As a curve model, we've been pushing for representation for a long time. And there's been moments where it's been trending and then it's not.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it's like body representation is not a trending topic.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be something that is trending. But the fact now that you can't even see clothes on a real person, whether it be a slimmer person, a curvier person, you can't even see it on a real person.
Yeah.
And if seeing those things before, when we had Photoshop and heavily altered bodies, if that wasn't messing up people's body image before, what is it going to do now?
When it's a completely fake.
When it's all fake.
Yeah.
How are people going to look at this and think, do I need to look like that?
Yeah. Because it's not possible.
It's not possible. If it didn't feel possible before, it really ain't feeling possible now.
Yeah. And I think the argument is like, if they don't do this, then AI is going to take over regardless. But I just feel like that's not the only options. The other option would be like for us to put our foot down and say no.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, brands have tried with just the full AI thing and like it didn't resonate. And I don't think that will ever resonate because people want to see real people.
Absolutely.
So I think that it is our job as models, as creatives, as photographers, as all these things to resist this and be like, no, we are real people. This is our industry. And like the only way that you're going to get a really good product is by having real people make it and give it to you. Like,
exactly.
I mean, like we said, AI is going to play a part in industries no matter what. I know a lot of photographers are losing jobs to it, especially like editors and stuff, because Photoshop can make you an entire fucking beach behind you when you were in a studio.
Yeah. I just did a photo shoot. I had a Band-Aid on one of my fingers and I was like, oh, you know, can't take this Band-Aid off. She's like, oh, don't worry, we got AI. And I was like, oh no, just keep the Band-Aid.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's
like,
really
actually?
okay. I'm like, you know, where it's getting so easy to completely, you know, even when you just think about any of these shoots creatively that are art, literal art, where they fly to different countries just to shoot on these specific beaches. And it's just, there's so much that goes into it that can now just be like, boop, just click a button and there's this beach in Puerto Vallarta or whatever.
Yeah.
And you didn't even have to go there.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to feel the sand in your toes.
Yep.
It's not real.
I totally understand it from a business perspective. Like, you know, people have to save money. And that's what really scares me right now, because obviously we are on the brink of an economic collapse.
Hello.
So I know businesses will even, like, they'll be even more motivated
1000%.
to cut costs. And like, what's the first thing that gets cut? Marketing. Like, obviously we've already seen it as creatives. Our rates have gone, they are on a constant decline. So I know that this is like going to be like super enticing, but I just feel like there has to be some resistance, and art is like the one place where, you know, like we want to feel like it's real. Like even for movies and for scripts and for songwriting, everything is using AI, and it's like, it's just not, it doesn't feel real.
The same way that it once did, where it's just like, you can see yourself in this movie. You can see yourself in this, you know, and it's like, now when you know it's all fake, what is the world going to continue to, like, art should be the space that is real.
Yeah.
And I just feel like we're losing that because people are becoming too dependent on technology. They're not using their brains anymore. They're not being creative anymore.
Yeah.
And I get it. There is a fine line between, you know, using technology and abusing it.
100%.
And I feel like in this time right now, the human race is starting to no longer use their brains.
Guys, didn't we also see like iRobot and all of these things? Like
are we not watching these movies where people are falling in love with you know, Siri and iRobot, where these robots are taking over? I'm like, I almost got ran over by one of those damn
Waymos.
That too.
I don't want to be like a catastrophizer.
I'm the opposite of that.
But
I'll get triggered.
It does feel scary. It does feel like the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end. But, you know, I feel like what we were talking about yesterday is, instead of going there, I felt more inspired to remind people how important it is to be yourself, to bring that personality, to have real life conversations, to pour everything into your art, and try to resist as much as you can by creating more and showing people why it's important to have real photographers,
100%.
real models, real everything in this industry specifically, same as the film industry. It's like, these are the worlds where we need it to be real. And these are also worlds where things can look very not real. Because they're not the most authentic industries. But we, at least me as a model specifically, which I feel like you as well, I try to advocate for as much authenticity as I possibly can.
100%.
Because I know what the industry is like. We've been in it for 10 plus years. We've clocked in, and we've had to fight tooth and nail as two girls with personalities that sometimes those aren't liked. And that's not for no reason. And just as I said, my purpose has always been to be authentically myself in this industry, because I also know that growing up, I didn't have models that I could look up to that looked like me, that had curly hair, that had athletic bodies, that had boobs, that had maybe not perfect teeth. I don't know. But I take it seriously for that to be my job, where I can represent so many girls and people that see something of themselves in me, which I feel like you as well. And that's what so many models, you know, if you're in it for a little bit more than the money, which I have always been, I always used to say, I don't need to make money. I said, I just want to model. And of course I need to make money nowadays. But, you know,
but there's something else driving it.
There's something more to it. And I think that I got inspired by hearing this, because I've worked for H&M. And it was something that was a very big moment for me. Because I was like, wow, this is, you know, H&M, this is another step in my career. And I was very excited. And so I feel like having worked for brands and even seeing brands that maybe I've worked for that might be trying to implement it, I do feel that I have a little bit of a voice. And if I can use it in some way, I want to. And I think that as models, I feel like we can both agree on this, but it's important for us to advocate for each other and our industry.
100%.
And, you know, I get it. Times are tough and people have to make their money, and I'm not one to necessarily tell anybody what they need to do.
100%.
But I do think that when you have a certain influence, which I would consider my influence pretty small in the fashion industry as of now.
But this is why we're here.
Okay, we're here. And, you know, we've been in this industry for a while. It doesn't mean that there is no influence, but for the models who are in top positions in this industry right now, I do feel that it's very important to acknowledge the influence that you have as a top model in the moment. And to remember where you came from.
You have a responsibility.
And you have a responsibility to, you know, implement some of these messages that maybe we as smaller models can't quite do. But you being in that position, you have to understand that the decisions that you're making, they're going to be a domino effect.
You have to also, like, operate with morality and like what kind of person what kind of person are you, and what kind of like legacy do you want to leave behind? Like,
what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? That right there.
Like I've had to make the really tough decision to stop working with brands that like I don't agree with shit that they do anymore, and it sucks. Like I had to turn down like one of my biggest clients because I was just like I genuinely don't feel like I can resonate with you and like some of the things that you've done, and like I can't liken my image to support this. And it does suck to walk away from money. Like obviously, like we just said, everyone needs it, but I think it's a responsibility for models. It's a responsibility for brands to like look at the bigger picture and like what is the type of world that you want to have, and what is, again, like the legacy that you want to leave behind. And like no hate to the people that are like interested in doing this. I do think that like we have to be realistic and know that AI is going to play a part in it, but it only goes as far as we let it.
Allow it.
Also, I liked what was said. I'll drop the other podcast that I listened to about this.
I'd like to hear that too.
In the description, it was just like more of like a Business Insider. Kind of look at things, but they mentioned what will be like the pushback to this, and it was kind of something you just referenced. And the woman said, like, it will just make creatives be more creative, and like push art to be better in a way, because like that's how you prove that AI could never replicate what people can do, because it can't. And
1,000%.
you know, I do feel like, unfortunately, some things have just gotten kind of like lazy in a lot of industries. And like, so maybe it's like the push that a lot of things need to like revamp and be like, okay.
Totally, be re-inspired.
If AI is coming for my job, like I'm going to show AI it can't fucking do this.
It can't take my job. You know, and I think that that's kind of I'm a very positive person. I like to end on positive notes so that I don't go
home and spiral.
down and spiral, you know. But I think that kind of, if I can leave a message with anybody, is that, you know, don't look at this as the end, but as the beginning to showing AI that it cannot replace real people. It cannot replace real art, real talent, real personalities. And if you were catching yourself slipping a little bit, this is the time to be like, hey, let me get back out there and do the damn thing. And remind people why real art and real people are important. And yes, technology is great to some extent, but there are certain aspects and certain places that it should not be replacing real people.
100%.
So,
wow. Period. Also, one last note on this as well. I think because of the time that we're headed towards, and like, I think we're about to see people being more intentional with the way they choose to spend their money. And we've already seen a pushback to fast fashion.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that this really creates an amazing opportunity for like smaller brands to be intentional and be uber creative with the way they do their marketing and their products and stuff. And like, I, as a consumer, would rather invest in a smaller brand who is using real people and making really amazing art over a fast fashion brand that's
conglomerate.
Just finding a way to get faster.
You know, yeah, exactly what you said. Intentional and just being aware of where your money's going.
Yep.
Who you're supporting. Because what we have learned is that we do have power.
Yeah.
Money is power, honey. And these conglomerate businesses, you know, no matter who it is, in the fashion industry or not, they thrive off of making money.
Yeah.
And they will be the ones to try to cut corners to make more money. And just as you said, I would 1,000% rather support a smaller business who is really doing it all.
Yeah. I just think that like this is like such an important time to build community as well. And just, just know that we all play a part in this. And
in the fashion industry, out of the fashion industry, you know, it all ties together just as a community. And I think that this is, you know, something that's so many people can listen to, whether they're in the fashion industry or not. The way that AI is coming,
it's affecting everyone.
It's affecting everyone. And if it hasn't yet, it will probably trickle down. And so it's one of those things where, you know, you do have to adapt to the times, but you can also stand up and say, actually, we're not going to let it do that much.
Yeah.
We're not going to let it do that much.
Yeah.
And as the models who have agreed and signed on to doing something like this, I think that's something to remember when it's very easy to say, hey, I've always wanted to be in two places at the same time, or now
she's just like me, but she doesn't have jet lag.
Like, you know, the tone deafness of those comments, you really have to think about what you say and what you do and remember where you came from and remember the people who have worked tirelessly to get where they are in this industry, in their careers, for it to just be wiped out by artificial intelligence and by people agreeing to sign on to something like this, not understanding how quickly this can get out of hand.
Yeah. Even like when we think about like usage for our images, like I just worry about, you know, you say like you own your digital twin, you really don't know what the hell could happen with that.
Courtney, the way that we don't even know where our images end up. And we have full-on teams that are in control of that.
Yep.
But that's just the internet in general. People can take an image that they see and use it in Switzerland without maybe you ever seeing it and being able to reach out to your team like, hey, I've had... which, you know, this one was under usage, but like I was in the Bahamas with my family, which is where my mom is from.
Okay.
We were at the airport. Okay.
It's like
I'm at the damn carousel picking up my luggage. I look up, it's me in some scrubs. And I'm like,
you're like, how did you get here?
The Bahamas? I mean, I know this is like my homeland, but where did the usage extend, you know? And you're like, hey, my agent, is this supposed to be here? But where the hell do you think your AI twin is going to go?
And you have no fucking idea. You have no idea.
That you will. Whoever's agreeing onto this right now, they're like, oh, I'll be in control. Girl.
I think that's a super
come on now
naive way to approach a situation. And I just think like protecting your image from our own standpoint, like in the industry, like you just said, is so important. But like that's you're basically like selling a version of yourself, which is like, do we not watch Black Mirror, guys? Like, I just think there's so many terrifying implications to that. And you have no idea. Like, I mean, you've seen like the deep fake videos. Well, actually, I don't know because
I haven't. I actually don't watch Black Mirror because that will send me to that will send me.
Deep fake is just like the videos where people have it's like a real video of someone and then they put AI on top of it and make it say something that's not real.
Yeah. So I've heard of that.
Yeah. If you're now not even taking something that was something else and turning it into something else. You are creating something else. I just feel like there are so many terrifying implications that could come from that. And like, yeah, you think you might own your person, but you don't know that. And they might be promising you a certain rate and then they're going to change that. I just think there's so many scary things. Obviously, I don't know the back end of these contracts or how that's being negotiated or what that looks like, but I just feel like
money that must, like I always like to say, never say never, but I really could not see myself doing something like that.
I think people just need to really educate themselves on this. I was surprised by how many people I know that haven't even heard about this. I know it is kind of like a newer story that came out, but yeah, just I really urge everyone to educate themselves about all of this. And even if you don't know a lot about AI, look into it. I'm not like fully slandering AI, like I said, but other fellow models, other creatives, educate yourself on this. And like, I think, like Sophia said, it's really like our time to come together and like stand against this. I'm like, this is a call to action.
We need to save the industry. I'm like, we need to just advocate for real people.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not feeling too scared. It is a scary time, but I do feel like there's so many of us that have something to fight for, that we will fight for it. So I'm more excited to kind of see how it plays out and, continuing to do what we do best, which is be real ourselves. And be ourselves and try to, connect with people.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This has been.
We have to do another episode because there's so much more we have to unpack.
We've got multiple episodes that we could have. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about.
100%.
But I'm glad that we got this one. This is a good one.
Yeah, I think this is a good one. Like we said, we tried so many times to be here and it didn't work for a reason. Like this was such a great topic, and I knew we had to talk about it.
Just a further call to the action.
Yes,
that it was really saving up for this conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that it's going to be something that, people, maybe if they haven't heard about it yet, they're hearing about it now.
Yeah.
And you can form your own opinions on it. I do think, disclaimer, it's very important for everybody to have their own opinions. In this world, in this time, you're free to think what you want to think. But this is just an opinion and also just some facts from people who work in the industry and who will be directly affected and know so many who will be directly affected as well. So it's just something to think about. Yeah.
And I will, in the description, I'll put that other podcast. I'll link some articles if you guys want to read more about this. Also, I can't remember if I've talked about this before, but Model Alliance is like a great source for people in the industry, especially models to oh my gosh, you would love them. They are like, they do a ton of advocacy for like laws being changed in the fashion industry. And I've seen them posting a lot about this. So I'll definitely link them down below. Obviously I will link Sophia's information. And I just urge everyone to educate themselves on this. So I appreciate you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And for having patience through all this shit.
Girl, I'm so proud of you for just having this podcast. I remember when Courtney sent me the first demo for her podcast, and I was like, girl, when she told me I saw that first episode, I was like, she really did it. I feel like everyone talks about doing a podcast, but to actually do it is badass. So
thank you.
I'm very proud of you.
I appreciate you.
I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. That is going to conclude this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. And I guarantee you, Sophia will be back again. So
I'll be back. We got more to chat about.
We'll see you in part 2. Bye, guys.
Yay! I'm so proud of you. That was so much fun.